Today is October 2nd, 2020, and Bill Nichols from Dunbarton, New Hampshire is here with 3 members of the Historical Awareness Committee, myself, Donna Dunn, Fred Mullen, and Lee Martell. And Bill has a long history in Dunbarton, and right now he is sitting in front of the barn, which used to be still here, but the farm was called the Charlie Little Farm, and he worked at this farm when he was a child. So, Bill, why don't you start out when you were born and your earliest recollections?
Well, I was born in 1945, and my father was in the service, and he was traveling around right after the Second World War. And he bought a chicken farm. We moved here in 1947, down where Blaney's place is now. And the reason I'd like to say I chose this venue here is when I worked for Charlie as a kid, at the end of the day, we'd come out here, the north end of the barn, sit down and have a drink. I mean, a drink would be some kind of like a Kool-Aid, whatever. And he'd tell stories, which I didn't have the opportunity of remembering everything, or I wrote down a lot of the memories that I do have. My father and Charlie worked a lot together. They did logging, got out wood together, and I can remember as a kid riding the log scoop coming up out of the woods over to my right here with firewood with his oxen, and that was quite a thrill for a little kid.
I understand he had the last oxen in town.
He had a pair of oxen, and I never saw it, but neighbors told me, Frank Upton, for one, Frank Upton was a neighbor and farmer, said he could back those oxen in under the barn, standing in the cart, just by saying gee and haw. So it's pretty impressive. He's a very mild-mannered man, very soft-spoken. I never heard him swear. I never heard him get excited. He was just soft-spoken, just a real gentle person, and he had a way with animals. The horses he had, a big workhorse, his name was Bessie. I remember that horse well, because I used to help harness it up. And we cultivate potatoes out here in the north here. He was known for his potatoes.
I think they were Catano.
Yeah, and he raised potatoes for most of the neighbors. And as a kid, we always got our milk up here. I was brought up on Charlie Little raw milk. So most of the neighbors would get their milk up here. But we'd walk up to the hill and he'd put it in milk bottles. And Mrs. Little, Millie, she'd always give us a piece of candy when we came up to get the milk. And nice person. When I started working for him, one of my first jobs was...
How old were you?
What's that?
How old were you?
Oh gosh, 7 or 8 maybe. Started tramping hay. Anybody know what that means?
No.
Well, that's before they had baled hay, and they'd throw the hay into a hay rack because it was uncompacted, and you'd walk around and try and push it down. They call that tramping hay. So they'd say, you're going to go tramping hay. And they build a nice load of hay, and they say, well, build up the corners, and it was a real, almost a showpiece when it was done. Then they bring the wagon up into the barn, and they pull the hay up with that hay fork. And Rick still got the hay fork out here, and I brought one just in case. Come down and grab a big clump of hay and pull it up to the top of the barn, dump it off in the high scaffold, then they pitch it down into the bays. Before, this is the way that it was done. And when they hayed, they'd only cut a small section of the field. They wouldn't cut the whole field. They just cut with what they could deal with. That way, I mean, obviously they didn't have weather forecasts back there, but they just, deal with a small section of the field and get that in, and then they cut another section and do that. Also, that was my job. Once the wagon was in the barn to pull the hay up, I'd lead the horse to pull the hay up. They'd come down, hook some forks, pull the hay up to the top of the barn, dump it, and I'd lead the horse. I remember once I was just a little kid, 7, 8 years old, maybe 9, always barefooted, and I was leading the horse back into the barn and stepped right on my foot.
Ouch.
Boy, it turned black and blue.
Ouch. Ouch, did he break anything?
And, what's that?
Did it break anything?
No, it didn't, not that I know of.
And you live within walking distance. This farm
Yeah, I
is
lived
on
down where
Kimball
Blaney's
Farm
lived.
Road, and
Yeah.
you lived on Little Lane?
Yeah.
Okay, so you were within walking distance.
Another, memory I have of this place was, as kids, we used to slide down the hills. I mean, you get a heck of a long ride there. Yeah, this is one of them hay forks for pulling the hay out.
Amazing.
This come out of Frank's barn, which, I don't know who lives there now.
But the Frank at the bottom,
Bottom of,
Yeah.
Ireland Hill and,
Yes.
uh, Stock Mansion Road.
where'd that barn go, by the way?
We tore it down, Les Hammond and I tore it down.
Oh, wow.
Too bad, there was a lot of good.
We've lost a lot of barns in this town.
Yeah.
Did you work here alone, or were there other kids that worked here too?
Sometimes if I had a friend over, they'd come up and we'd help tramp hay or whatever. Yeah, like I said, we used to sit out here in the evening when we were done working. It was always nice and cool as the north end, and have a drink. And Charlie always had stories to tell and talk about different things. You talk about one of his subjects was a hurricane of '38, and how he come out to the barn. The wind was blowing so hard, and he was concerned about the doors caving in, because once they got in, they'd take the roof off. Well, he come out and he said it sounded just like a locomotive. He said the wind was blowing so hard, and he said the doors were blowing. I think he said he had to break them up, but he said it was quite a scare. He also talked about him moving the barn up the hill, and he told me, but I can't remember how many yoke of oxen they had to move this barn up the hill. It was set down the bottom of the hill somewhere.
Wow.
We moved it up to this location.
Was it the barn or the house? I had thought it was the house that was moved. I know there was a house moved from here down there in fairly recent history.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, I'm just curious.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he said it was a barn. Like I said, as I got older, I'd help Charlie with his wood every winter. Every fall, we'd get his wood up, and I'd saw it up, and we'd throw it in the woodshed. I had a tractor here, and Mrs. Little, her name was Millie. She was Charlie's, and she was the first one to die, and then her sister lived with her, Marion Sterrett. Marion had a car, because that was their only transportation they had. I was told Millie was a school teacher, and she taught at a schoolhouse down here on Hoyt Road and Tibbetts Hill. There was an old schoolhouse there. It's still there, but they converted it into a house. Remember that, Lou?
Mm-hmm.
And that's where Charlie met Millie.
Is that where?
No, it's
Oh, okay, got it. Oh, so she taught there.
Charlie, he had a bad, if anybody had a problem with their property lines, they could count on Charlie. He knew almost every property line within South Dunbarton, I'd say. I don't know about the rest of the town, but I believe he was a fence viewer, which I think the town voted to do away with that. Fence viewer and surveyor of wooden timbers.
Yep.
Charlie was involved with that.
I think Don Unty told us when they were doing the power lines up through this area, that if they had any questions with property lines, to go see Charlie Little.
Yeah, oh, he was very knowledgeable about property lines. So. One thing I remember is Charlie would get all his corn together in the fall, and my mother and father, we'd take them down to Bull Mills to get the corn ground into grain. And one of his things, there was a little store at the end of Clinton Street in McKee Square. They called it the Dewdrop Inn. And Charlie'd always want to stop there and get an ice cream. I mean, that was a big treat back then. You'd want to stop and buy everybody an ice cream. So, Yeah, Charlie talked a lot about the mills at Kimball Pond. There was 3 mills down there. Grist mill, a shingle mill, and a sawmill. It was quite an industry going down there. He said big, long wooden bridge going across the brook were empty. He said that was the longest bridge in town.
I wonder if we have a picture of that. Did it have side rails? Because
I never saw a picture of it. He also talked about the last Indians in town, lived down on Kimball Pond Road. And how they come up here and they left their chickens. And they went up to Canada. As you would ride along with Charlie, he'd have a story about it, almost everything in town. There was a big rock going up out of Kimball Pond Road, past the pond site on the right. Charlie said there was a wagon going up there, a hay wagon, with a big load of hay, and there was a kid riding on it. And he fell off and hit that rock and was killed. I don't know the name of the kid, but that rock is on the right going up the hill there as you leave Kimball Pond.
did he ever have any fires at this barn?
Fires?
Fires. Were there any fires or? Is there a fire? Maybe not. I'm not.
Well, I don't know if anybody been familiar with Kimball Pond, but if you go in on the left-hand side, there's a big rock with a ring in it, a big iron ring. Anybody ever seen that?
No.
And then on the other side, there's another iron ring going across the pond. And what they did during the hurricane of '38, they chained logs together. They called that the log boom. And they claimed there was 3 million board feet of logs in there. They're all stamped U.S. on the end. There's still a lot of logs at the bottom of the
One
pond.
floated up a couple of, I think earlier this year,
Yeah,
and a
yeah,
guy
they keep-
got
they
a
might-
picture.
yeah.
Yes.
But that ring, that iron ring is still down there. Charlie told me about that. Like I said, later on in life, as I was growing up, probably until I went in the Marines, I'd come up, help Charlie do his wood. He wasn't haying at that time. I remember the first year they hayed this place. Jimmy Stone come down and hayed it. Did it all in 2 days. Did the whole farm. It would take them all summer to hay this the old way. Jim come down and mowed it down and baled it. Les Hammond and I worked on it, helped him get the hay in. But Charlie was amazed at how fast.
It's too bad they had no children to pass the farm on to.
Well, no. My mother always claims that had I been around, that he probably would have left it to me because he thought the world of me. I mean, I was always here, always helping him. And in fact, I was concerned when I went into service and that there would be nobody to help him get the wood out. And I think I asked one of the Uplands if they'd help. When I was in the Marines, when I went in the Marines, I had a tractor that I used here on the farm. And I asked Charlie, I says, can I leave that under the barn while I'm gone? I didn't know if I was coming home or not. Well, Charlie said, of course you can. So I got a picture of that tractor sitting under the barn.
Oh,
on this
definitely,
barn.
I'll make a copy of that. Yes.
And I come back, I got it out, it's still here. Charlie was gone then. I mean, he'd after Marion had died, I think he went downhill. There was a family down the road, the Peasleys, they took him in, took care of him. But
Is that Don Peasy, Donald and Thelma?
Don and Thelma Peasley. And I think they ended up handling the estate and everything after Charlie was gone. But
Now, in all these times of working around here on the farm, did you ever get hurt other than the horse stepping on your foot?
no, I remember sliding down the hill once and the sled went through the, we had one of those freezing rains where you got a layer of ice on top of the snow and it was just like slick and slide down. Boy, we'd go like heck down the hill and all of a sudden the sled sunk into the ice and I went off and got skinned up pretty good.
And you had to climb back up and do it all over again.
My brother, walking home once with a bottle of milk, he fell down and he got a real bad cut on his hand. Like I said, we come up here every day to get milk. I think we get 4 quarts a day. So it was all in glass bottle, quart jugs.
Did any of them have his name on it? Just plain old bottles?
No, it had different dairies on it.
Yeah.
See, Charlie was a soft-spoken gentleman. Never heard him swear. Knowledge about the town and its history. I was thankful to have someone like him to look up to as a kid growing up in Dunbarton. I think that's pretty much all I had.
On Charlie. All right, well, let's talk about some of the other things. You grew up in this neighborhood and you had friends, and there were ponds around here. There were things that you kids could do. What kind of mischief did you get into?
Yeah, well, it wasn't a lot of, it was real close to the Uptons. The Uptons lived just over the line down there. They had a farm down there. With the Uptons, I hung out with them a lot. We went hunting together a lot. Bruce, the oldest brother, he's the one that kind of got me hooked on tractors, farm tractors, which I collect today. But,
did you belong to the Boy Scouts?
I did, yeah. There was, at one time there was just three of us, me, Les Hammond, and Leland Mills. And there wasn't enough to, I think, to comprise of what they called a troop. But, you had to do something special because there wasn't that many of us. But at times there was more kids in the Scouts.
Did you use the old school of Montalona, or I know later they did?
No, we used to meet in the vestry in town.
Did you guys have bicycles? Did you have?
Oh yeah, we went everywhere on bikes. Yeah. I'd go up. Les Hammond and I were always together.
Now at this point, where did he live?
He lived over in north, what they call Grapevine Road now, right at the bottom of the hill. He moved around town quite a bit too and lived at different places.
What kind of hobbies did you have?
Well, I don't know, we hunted. As kids, it seemed like all we did is work. If I'd had a chicken houses, you always had to shovel them out.
Good fertilizer.
Yeah, chicken manure, yeah, that's good fertilizer. Yeah, we spent a lot of time shoveling. Rodney Duce worked for my father too. He can tell you about cleaning out hen houses.
Did you go to church?
What?
Did you go to church?
Yeah, I was brought up a Catholic, and we went to church down in Goffstown, St. Lawrence. My mother was Catholic, but I don't think my father was, because he never went to church. Not there.
And how many siblings did you have?
What's that?
How many siblings did you have?
I had a brother and two sisters.
You the youngest, or?
Well, I'm the next to the oldest. I have one sister that's older than me. She's out in New York.
Did you pal around with them, or did everybody kind of go their own way?
Yeah, everybody kind of went their own way.
Did you have any pets growing up?
Yeah, we had some dogs.
Any horses?
What's that?
Horses?
No, we had some cows, chickens, pigs. We had pigs for a while. Like any farm. We had a huge garden. My mother did a lot of canning.
What kind of hunt? When you went hunting, what did you hunt?
Oh, we went deer hunt. And, mainly deer hunt. I did something I kind of lost interest in when I got out of the service. I had no interest in hunting anymore.
Did you have any other animals you hunted for food?
What's that?
Any other animals you hunted for food?
No, I didn't go bird hunting.
Rabbit?
No.
Squirrel?
My uncle used to go rabbit hunting. He had a dog that he kept on the farm there, that's a beagle. And he'd take him down and back and go rabbit hunting.
How about fishing? Fishing?
Yeah, I can remember going fishing. One of the things in Kenny Green's interview, they talk about renting boats up to Rance Merrill's. And I remember going up there going hornpouting with Les and his father. I think Carol Crosby was there. don't know if anybody ever knew this Carol. Carol was kind of a character from, he's where that white blacksmith shop originated.
Yeah, I know, that house was taken down, a controlled burn. We've never, I've got a picture of it burning on fire, but
Yeah.
I've never seen a picture of it, just the house.
Yeah, it was a beautiful house. It had all the original furniture in it. Carol just lived in one small room and one end. He was a kind of a hermit. He worked for the town, didn't have a license. He'd walk up to the stores in the center every day to get supplies. And also in your interview, you talk about the Stickneys, John and Walter. And I can remember them very well. Walter would walk to work every day. They worked down to Upton Sawmill. You probably don't remember that. Upton on Tibbetts Hill had a big sawmill down there. Gerald Upton. There was three brothers, Frank, Gerald, and Everett. And they owned most of the land on Tibbetts Hill, the three of them. Gerald had a big sawmill. They called him Tom. His name was Gerald. Everybody around knew Tom Upton. He owned a lot of land around too. But the Stickneys used to walk down there because I don't think they ever had their license very well. John Stickney was, he lived in a camp up on Story Hill, just past Alton, going up there. And I remember he had a dug well there, and he'd go down and he'd pull it up, and he'd have a bucket of beer. As that would get a cold. Pickwick Ale.
That's a good place to put it. So how did you heat your house when you were growing up?
Wood. Yeah, everybody here with wood.
Wood stove or just a...
Oh, we had a wood furnace.
Wood furnace.
Yeah. And them houses weren't insulated, none of the houses. They were cold. Cold upstairs. Everybody survived, I guess.
Didn't hurt anybody. What do you remember about your school days? And which school did you go to?
I went to the center school in Dunbarton. When it started out, there was just 2 rooms. 2 teachers, Mrs. Hayes and Mrs. Fowler. She taught the first 4 grades, and Mrs. Fowler taught the 4 through the 8. Mrs. Fowler, everybody loved her. She was a tremendous teacher. Mrs. Hayes was pretty strict.
I've heard this before.
Good cop, bad cop.
Yeah, good cop.
Yeah. But
did you have school lunches back then?
yeah, they had hot lunches. We used to go over to town hall. And one of our jobs as kids, we'd have to lug the wood up, go over there and lug the wood up to get the stove. They had a big stove in there as you walk in the door, wood stove, and get that going. It'd still be cold and heckling. But then, oh gosh, Annie DeLude would be the cook. And yeah, they'd have hot lunches. I don't know if they had them all year round. I can't remember. But we'd all line up and go over to town hall to eat.
And how did you get to school?
When I first started, Agnes Marshall had a bus route. She just had a tiny little car, and she loaded all us kids up. Gosh, it was. I can remember Danny Gravis and Charlie Meekins and some of the other kids around. You mentioned that place where they had the newspaper there, where John's got his oil tanks now. There was Albert Merrill lived there, and he had 2 daughters that used to go to school, Kathleen and Pat. They lived there, and that was before that. Then we go down all the way to the golf course, pick up, I think there was one girl down there, I don't remember her name. I remember the Story house, which was it Modulewski now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there used to be an outfit to go around that sprayed barn roofs, just repaint them, spray them silver paint.
Was there? I vaguely remember this.
But anyway, they I don't know who did it, but I think Story had the house painted, the whole house. They painted windows and everything. It was all silver.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
Rodney Deuce had a brought to you that.
That's why the current owners had to put siding up, because there was no paint that would ever stick. John's
Yeah, there was no
little told
paint.
me that, so the paint wouldn't stick to the house.
That silver paint stuck.
Yeah.
But they'd go around and spray the barn rooms, the tin rooms. I remember that.
must have seen many a barn disappear in your life around here.
Barns?
Barns.
Yeah, yeah. I love old barns, and I hate to see them go. I don't think there's many left. This is pretty much an original state, this barn here. Seen a lot of them got torn down.
Well, if you look at the aerial on the selectmen's wall, the big aerial map,
The 41 map.
41, even then, there were still a lot of barns, a fair number. I'm not going to say a lot, but there were a fair number in town that are just gone just in the last 60 to 80 years.
Well, that's one thing. Everybody had a few cows, sold milk. There was a creamery down in Goffstown. It's up on, what do they call it, Patty Hill?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know where Mrs. Hayes lived?
I don't know, but I know.
Do you know
I
the
know
landscaper lives there now, I think?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, though.
But right across the road there was a creamery, and everybody brought their milk there. I can't remember the name of it, but I remember Frank Upton and Will Merrill. Will Merrill lived up there. He had cows, and Everett Upton and my father. Everybody brought their, you'd put it in milk cans and bring it down there. You had a small milk cooler in the milk room.
I think there's actually some pictures at the library of Charlie Little with one of his milk jugs.
Charlie Little?
Yeah, there's a binder with a story in there about Charlie. So most of the time, really, as far as kids, you stayed around town and stayed in the area. Did you go to the city at any time? Did you go to Concord or Manchester?
I don't remember going to the city that often. I remember on occasion, we'd go down to get an ice cream somewhere. I think it was down in Manchester. That was a big treat. I don't remember ever going to restaurants. The big deals in town, of course, was the chicken barbecue.
Yeah.
The fire department, they used to go around Harold Burnham and then selling tickets. And that was always a big treat, go up to the chicken barbecue. I don't know when they started doing that. Do you know?
I think around 1968.
68? Yeah. Seems like they were doing that forever.
As far as refrigeration, obviously you came after electricity, so you always had a regular refrigerator. Did you ever have an ice box or anything like that?
No, I didn't. But I can remember this place in particular, and a lot of the farmhouses around here still had pumps in the kitchen, hand pumps, and outhouses. So they hadn't quite gone to that point where they had indoor bathrooms yet.
Well, there's an outhouse attached to a barn not too far down the road here, and I guess in power outages it's still used. Now, what about, doctors and kids getting hurt, and dentists, all that stuff? What were those?
Well, I remember the doctor around was Dr. Snay from Goffstown.
Did he make house calls, or did you?
He seemed to take care of everybody. I mean, around Dunbarton, he took care of Les's father.
It seems the custom was, nobody really got annual physicals per se. You only went to the doctor if you were feeling sick, right?
Yep. Of course, there was a hospital down there in Grassmere too, the Moore General. My brother was born down there, right where the old county farm is.
Right.
My sister went down there. They had a nursing school down there. This south end of Dunbarton, and like Grassmere around Tibbetts Hill and all that area, it was all, most of the people knew each other. There was a grange down in Grassmere where everybody would go down and attend, all the farmers and stuff. There was some beautiful fields down there on Tibbetts Hill. That was a pretty ride down there. Now it's all houses.
There's a map that showed up a while back, and on it, maybe you know the lore about this. There's a little road that goes off Long Pond Road near Shelley Dowper's house, but a little further north, and it's called Moonshine Road.
Yeah, Moonshine, yeah.
Do you know anything about that history?
I have no idea where that came from. Yeah, I've heard the name, heard it mentioned, but yeah, it comes on back. Well, it goes all the way to
Yeah, the
Kimball
power lines, yeah. might know something about that.
They're probably gone. Probably, I'm sure the Unties or the Bob Paris knew about it. Rodney might. Rodney Doucette.
Yes, Ken. Okay, how about, let's see, any big horrible things happened while you were growing up? Like houses burning down? I know
Well,
we had...
one of the things I can remember as a kid, on your road there, Gorham Pond Road, there was a big barn back of Meekins. Used to be Meekins. I think Gravis lived there in later years. But anyway, the big barn there, this is early the 50s. And that barn burned, and they had a pair of horses in there. They let them out, and the horses ran back in the barn because they were so scared. They burned up.
And the horses died?
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's awful.
Yeah, they didn't know what to do, you know. That was a safe spot in the barn. But I can remember that one. Then down the road here, down the bottom of the hill, there was a farmer named Pratt. I can't remember his first name, but he got killed by a bull in his barn. He got, well, I say he got gored, but I heard he got crushed to death. The bull got him up against the side of the barn.
What was that roughly? I hadn't heard that story.
Oh yeah, I'm sure the Uptons remember that.
Okay. Wow.
Of course, that big barn down there burned down. Where I think it was Holy Binkle. Do you remember Holy Binkle?
No.
You know where Plimpton Road goes off to the right?
Mm-hmm.
Then you go up a little. There's a big farm sits out there.
Tom's place.
Oh.
There was a big, beautiful barn there that burned down.
As we sit here smelling wood smoke, talking about fires. Bill Zella told us as a kid that sometimes they would fool around in the center cemetery, get into the vault.
Yeah, the old tomb.
Did you do any mischief like that?
No, I never did.
Well, you were a goody two-shoes, weren't you?
I don't think so, but
Ask him about sliding down Grapevine Road on left.
Yeah.
yeah.
What's this about sliding down?
Oh yeah, we
Grapevine
slide
Road,
down
the
Bonnet
middle of
Hill.
the road?
That was a good ride down Bonnet Hill. The road agent pulled us back up to the top with his truck. Henry Hodgman.
But there were so few cars, you could get away with it back
Yeah.
then.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, that was the thing. You going back to the school years, you get done your grammar school, and you go to high school wherever you can get a ride. My father happened to work in Manchester, so I went to West Side. I'd ride down with him, and a lot of the kids went to Concord because they had to ride, and they'd have to hitchhike in. Hitchhike to go to high school.
Unless they were lucky enough to have a parent that lived in that town.
Yeah.
What about some of the kids that went to Millville?
What where?
Millville School. It's over near St. Paul. I know Nancy Cross said she went there.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody went there.
Okay. So did you ever do any jobs or work for the town? Like, I know way back, some of the kids did the Pine Blister Rust. That was probably before your time. But did you ever work for the town at all?
Oh yeah, well, as a kid, we all worked for the town. I mean, all the kids did.
What'd you do?
I worked for the highway department, picking rocks. You know, they'd spread gravel, and you go along, pick the rocks out of the gravel. In the wintertime, we'd spread sand in the back of trucks and spread sand. Les and I did that. On the icy roads, we'd cut brush and burn brush.
Then you got older and you started dating. What was that like?
Well, I don't remember. I don't think anybody dated any girls from Dunbarton. I don't know why.
Did you have dances?
Huh?
You had dances?
Yeah, Stock Mansion was a big thing back then. We started going to Stock Mansion and dancing. And a lot of people met their wives down there. Mitch Belanger met Jackie down there. Jimmy met Judy down there. Ray Mills met his wife down there. Les met a girl down there, and I met a girl down there. The girl I met was from Kentucky. And Les, the girl he met was from Andover. Her father played a horn in the band. I think it was a trumpet or something. They had a nice little band down there. Bob Boynton's father was in it. Myron Colby was a square dance caller. That's Janice's father, Janice Boynton's father.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably where Bob learned to call him square dance.
Yeah.
But Myron.
So
Yeah,
where else did you go to dances?
What's that?
Where else did you go to dances?
Oh, we used to go up to Bradford. Then they had dances in the town hall now and then, but I didn't go in them. When I was younger, they used to have a dance there every Saturday night, but that was way back in the early 40s. They had that bucket of blood and where everybody
Yeah, I've
talks
heard
about.
about the bucket of blood. I wish I could see a picture of that bucket of blood.
There's a lot of stories about that were passed down that you hear about. But that was pretty wild.
What was your first car?
What?
First vehicle?
54 Chevy. I got a picture of it.
Huh?
54 Chevy.
What color?
It was green and white.
Two-toned.
Yeah.
My father's first Chevy was a two-tone.
I brought a picture of one of the tractors I had. And it was taken out here in the field. One of the tractors I used to get out wood with for Charlie. And we were moving, that's the one I think I told the story at Les's funeral. We were moving it up to his house and got away from us, going down a hill and went out the road just below where Bob Blackman lived. And there was an old camp there on the left, old logging camp, an old timer lived there. And he come out and he says, you want to get rid of that tractor? I said, yeah. I sat down in the ditch. He said, well, what do you got? He said, I'll trade you a chainsaw for it. So we made the trade. He got the tractor. We went off with the chainsaw.
He probably got it up and running again.
Yeah. Yeah, Les and I were always towing stuff around town, tractors. And Gardner Mills had a Fordson tractor, which is one of those iron wheel tractors.
Mm-hmm.
We used to go around, we plow gardens and stuff. We drove it from his house all the way to my house. We were gonna move a little building, and didn't have enough power to move the building, so that was a waste of time.
It was fun trying.
It's a rough ride, because it had iron wheels.
Do you ever remember anyone talking about windmills that used to be in Dunbarton?
There was a windmill right here.
Now?
No, it's gone. It went down on 38, the hurricane of 38. But
Do you have
Charlie used to
pictures
talk
of
about
it?
it. That was down over the hill where he'd get his water.
The only other ones I knew about were the ones in the center of town. Charlie Pride had one for his cattle, and there were two more in the center of town.
Yeah, no, there was one here, for sure.
Really?
Yeah, there were still remains of it when I was a kid, the metal frame.
Mm-hmm.
But I never saw it. But Charlie talked about it. Then after that, he put a pump down there. He walked down and get the water.
We have a visitor.
Right. Hey.
Hi, visitor. Okay, so let's see. What else can you tell us? We've talked about growing up. You lived in 3 different houses. What else would you like to tell us? Just in general, growing up in Dunbarton, how did you feel about it?
Oh, I think it was probably the best experience in the world. And everybody knew everybody, and neighbors helped neighbors. Everybody worked hard. There was everybody had a little farm or whatnot. Well, life was just toned down to what it is today.
So
Do you
you wouldn't
know
mind doing
why-
it all over again?
Do you know why Charlie decided to give the little lot, which is down, the gravel pit down there now, equal shares to the library and the town forest committee? Why he did that?
What? Charlie had a brother And I think that actually has something to do with his brother, but, I have no idea why he decided to give that land away.
There's some information about that at the library in a Charlie Little binder. Stock certificates and part of the transfer over. I don't know why he did it, except that
I
he
was
liked
just
the
asking about
library.
his reasoning to give equal shares to the library and the town forest, that's, you know.
Well, Bill, unless I can't think of anything else, I painted a nice picture of growing up here.
Yeah, I got
Pretty
some
much
pictures.
everybody else has that's talked to us too.
What's that?
Everybody we've talked to has the same fond memories of growing up here.
Well, like Rodney Doucette said, you know, he lives in Bow now, and he said, I live in Bow, but my heart's in Dunbarton. It's, and you talk to anybody that grew up here, if they don't live in here, you talk to the Warner girls, or any of they just love Dunbarton. There's something about it, growing up here, it's just, very special place.
All right, well, we want to thank you, Bill.
Yep.